Hello, I'm Aaron Matus with D1 Ticker. One of the major storylines we've been following this college football season is fans coming back to stadiums and some stadiums having to adjust a little bit with their game day ops to be ready for fans once again. Entry to the stadium has been an issue. Concession lines have been a bit of a problem. One school, Northern Illinois, did have some issues early on and have since been trying to make adjustments. And we are thrilled to have both athletic director Sean Frazier and executive associate athletic director John Cheney with us today. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Aaron.
All right, Sean, I want to start with you and just take me back to the Wyoming game. And I know you guys had some issues. How did you know early on, or did you know early on there were some problems happening, and what can you even possibly do on game day when you start to notice some of the issues popping up?
First off, Aaron, thank you very much for having us. And yeah, you're right. You know, it's interesting. You know, COVID has had a big effect, but those that have been in the battle know that the supply chain, you know, the logistical component is one of the biggest issues outside of obviously contracting the virus and folks being hospitalized as well as losing life. But what it's done is really changed how we view large gatherings. How are we dealing with them? How are we dealing with the logistical components on supplies, staffing? So we had a good idea, you know, as we were trying to knock the rust off, get us back up to operational standards for our first home opener. But to our chagrin, a lot of our supporters, food service vendors, staffing, et cetera, really were caught by surprise when they thought they had numbers and numbers did not show up, or there was cancellations, or product wasn't able to come because of various issues. So we were aware. We have a great team. Obviously, John has done a fantastic job with that, with our game ops. We were told that things were going to be okay, but sometimes things don't happen. And I think for me, it was really, you know, glaring that the long lines, the issues of supplies. It was a very hot day on our home opener against Wyoming, and we saw lines, we saw disgruntlement, we saw everything, all the above, right? So crisis management. I have a saying with our group. I say code red as I'm texting folks. Folks kind of laugh, my senior staff, but that means that we've had a fail. We had shortcomings, and we needed to do something about it. So that's the bigger picture. Is that, yeah, we did know, we had some idea, but on the day in question, it unfortunately for us all came to a standstill in certain areas of our game management.
Yeah, and I think most people watching this know that this is the case, but want to just point out, of course, this is not a Northern Illinois issue. This was across the country. Just again, thank you to you two for coming on and discussing this with us. John, want to welcome you in now and just say, okay, we have a problem. It needs to be fixed. What points did you identify as you know, issues that could be remedied to make sure game day operations? Now, mind you, this was 2 weeks. You had 2 weeks to make these adjustments. What did you identify as things that could be remedied and make the game day experience better for fans?
Right. Well, definitely on the first game on Wyoming, you know, you basically, what can we downsize to really focus our attention to other, you know, what can we live without? Do you have to have, you know, 3 different levels of, you know, concession stands throughout, or can you reduce some of your staffing to, you know, improve at different spots rather than fail everywhere type of scenario? So we did some of that the first game. You know, as Sean, you know, he put out a statement afterwards, you know, acknowledging our shortcomings and vowing to do better. And, you know, and it starts that night right after the game. We had phone calls and those type of things. You know, you go up the food chain a little bit from your local and your regional folks to some of the national folks to talk to them about how can improvements be made with your partners and making sure that there's support at the level that there needs to be support to do those things. Because there's going to be some cost impact to your partners and vendors to get things done in such a short order, and maybe have to pay incentives and some of that type of stuff. So we identified, you know, both our own areas of shortcomings where, you know, some of our entrance lines weren't as efficient as we wanted them to be. You know, things with compliance or, NCAA rules as far as guests with our recruits and those type of things, and figuring out those areas, as well as our concession stuff. So, and catering and different things within the stadium. So we identified where the shortcomings were, and then started to build our plan around, a lot of it just had to deal with personnel numbers. And in our case, it was probably a 30 to 40% no-show rate,
Wow.
and that just, it's hard to overcome that in the short term, but we identified of ways to do it, to put up more, satellite smaller stands that could be beverage only, or do some of those things, work with other partners in the community to have like food truck options and different things that just logistically makes it a little bit easier and spreads the load a little differently than what we had on our first game.
You guys have worked together for a long time, and I would imagine some of that experience together helped in fixing this in a quick manner. So either one of you jump in on this one, but we spoke with a professor at Holy Cross that deals with economics and could speak to this type of problem. And he said flat out, if you've got a personnel problem, I can solve it. You got to pay the workers more. And athletic departments might not like that in the short term right now, but that's really the solution to fix things the quickest. Truth to that, and did you guys have to look at that as an option to get some of this personnel, some of the people back in the door to work?
Problem right now is even offering better salaries there, or hourly rates, those type of things. There just aren't the people that are looking for the work right now. Whether that's based on their personal situation with COVID, or that's just where they are. These are seasonal jobs. There's 6 Saturdays, and like I said, it's a different dynamic when you're dealing with someone that's working for a group rather than working for themselves in their own specific financial situation. So all of that kind of comes into play. But I can say that we definitely incentivize differently. If you hit your numbers, you'll get a bonus, or you'll get a higher percentage of your sales at your particular stand that you're operating, or some of those type of things. And that's where we worked with our partner Sodexo on, because there's going to be some financial impact to them based on having to do a harder outlay for their personnel. And so your operating costs go up. But we did the same with our own event staff and some of those type of things, trying to ensure that our numbers would be higher and better met for this past weekend.
Yeah, just on that point, just to fill in the blank, and John hit it right on the head. If this was easy, this would have already been done. I think that, I don't want to be as direct like that, but COVID has made some significant challenges. This can't be okay. You knew the game was coming. Why didn't you have water? Why didn't you have pop? Why didn't you have the people here? Well, that sounds great. And maybe not in a pandemic or the issues that we're still digging out. People don't want to hear that. The public wants to hear that they're coming in, they've paid their ticket, and they want to enjoy their overall experience. This wasn't something like you had a year to figure it out and you still couldn't have figured it out. No, paying them more, yeah, substantially more, yes. But when we're talking about rates of pay of scale, we're still having issues with, what, I have other options now. Or what, COVID, I don't want to be around people at this point. Oh, you know what, I don't want to be around crowds at this point. Yes, there is a significant change on how we do business. And I think that for us to be naive enough not to recognize that COVID has played some level of challenge to what we're doing, absolutely. Now, I'm going to get after it to make sure we correct it, because we want our patrons to be here. We want our fan base to be here. But there has been a significant challenge now on getting thousands of people in an environment and making sure that the services go off without a hitch. So that's what we saw, the reaction. We wanted to make sure from a communication standpoint that we recognize it. The emperor doesn't have any clothes on. Well, we want to make sure that we don't want to be that person. We want to make sure that we recognize that, communicate that, and please give us a little patience while we will course correct.
All right, 2-part question for you then, Sean. You said fail for that first game due to many circumstances. You're just a couple days removed from welcoming fans back for the Maine game with a similar paid attendance. Do you have a grade that you would give for this last home game?
Significantly improved. I'm still literally, combing through it. I think John, that's great to have, my number 2 here to tell you exactly how he feels. Because again, I walk around and I'm an old event management guy to John's chagrin, as he knows. So I think I've got it all figured out, and I don't. So I would give it much improved. Okay. Different circumstance. Wasn't as hot during the Maine game as it was during Wyoming. We did have a little bit of a variance on numbers there, and then flow. So I would give significantly improved, not where we need to be at all, but significantly improved. John, was I too hard?
I would say you're correct in that assessment. The other thing, Aaron, I would point out is, large crowds. Last year, the only people we allowed were friends and family to be able to come to the football games. And so we didn't even have necessarily a concessions component to speak of. So it's been 18 to 24 months since these operations have been. So personnel weren't, you can provide training, but until you're really in the heat of the moment and you're doing what you need to do at halftime to try to get the lines through and some of those type of things, it does take a little while to work the kinks out as well. So I think that played into it not as much as our numbers and some of those type of things. So game 2, you're going to get some people that worked game 1 that have a little bit better experience. And, and that's another thing where we're prioritizing for game 3 to make sure that people that have worked the other games are back again. For us, we specifically broke it up within our senior staff to have different senior associate athletic directors in different areas evaluating and able to communicate directly with the different folks that were the leadership group with our partners and within our own department for specific areas. So if they saw a line forming, they could evaluate, was it just because of the time of the game, or was it because we had a shortcoming in some area or needed to adjust and make, on the spot modifications.
Yeah, I do think you bring up a good point. Without having concessions or major concessions last year, you lose that connection to the previous year's workers that maybe came back repeatedly. So probably a lot more training going on for staff at football games across the country this year. Sean, how did you monitor the Maine game? I assume high alert was still the calling card across the department. So how did you kind of keep an eye on things game day during the game?
Yeah, I think it's the first time I didn't wear a jacket, Aaron, at a game. So it might be my first time. I've been here nine, going into my 9th year, 8 years. And I've always had, a conservative look about myself, at least semi. And the first time I, pulled the jacket off and I was walking around and wanted to blend in to see our East and West operations or premium areas, and like John said, we broke out the senior staff. I've got about 7 individuals that I cannot do anything without, and they were dispersed throughout. So that was another level of eyes. 80% of my time was back at the house in between these areas that we had shortcomings, and then 20%. And note on this one, we actually won this game. So maybe I do the same thing here on out, because that worked, because this time we won. In Wyoming, we did not. So yeah, I'm going to try to replicate this thing, Aaron, on a regular basis.
I'm about to find out how superstitious you are. Last thing I have for you, John, just because, we want this to be helpful if someone within college athletics world watches this. So let's just say somebody gives you a call, said, John, I'm in the same situation. I got to make this work. I got 2 weeks before our next home game. I guess, 3 bullet points. What were the biggest adjustments you made that you think created improvements for the Maine game?
Well, I would say, the distribution to other administrators as well, these games, and a lot of people have that at some level, but maybe not to the senior staff level, that the distribution throughout the stadium, that just gives it a whole nother level of accountability to the entire staff. So I think that helped. We had, multiple walkthroughs throughout the week to walk through the plan, to ask questions. just to save myself some agony, Sean wasn't involved until the last walkthrough, but it was effective, to really talk through the issues. We have great partners and they want to be successful as well. So it's just a matter of, where is identifying what we needed to do as NIU athletics and what they're doing as far as within their organization and finding those things. And then really it was just, probably the last one was just communicating, and making sure that, our fans knew what was there, it's signage, it's different things, that are pretty much event management 101. And it's not like we didn't have it, but you definitely expand upon it. And I have talked to some of our peers, everybody's having their own different challenges, whether it's, now you have to check for vaccination or testing at the gates, or you're scanning tickets and, your fan base is adjusting to digital ticketing or, concessions, it's all these different things. Doesn't matter if you have a 10,000 person stadium or crowd or 100,000 people, it's just a matter of scale and everybody's feeling some of the same issues. And so I think, that's the great thing about athletics is people do reach out and talk to each other and find solutions. And, kudos to you guys for putting these type of videos and chats together to try to help us, because it's definitely useful.
So much to consider this year. Guys, best of luck moving forward and getting ready for yet another home game. I know you guys are excited for that, and things probably just going to keep getting smoother and smoother as the year goes on. So thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.